Day golf show from awesemo.com. Same crew as always, myself, Ben Raza, here with Tim Frank, Fantasy Golf Man. Oh boy, Houston Shell. I guess it's the Shell Houston Open. This wasn't even on the schedule last year. We got a reprieve. What say you?
Boy. It used to be an okay tournament when they played it the week before the Masters.
Masters warm up. I remember this tournament vividly. There was a mud ball year. Russell Henley. This is right in my wheelhouse. This is, I know I speak in exaggerations all the time. This is truly one of the worst fields I've ever seen.
It's horrific. I mean, at the top, it's really bad. Just the golfer. Usually like we have like one guy, and maybe the guy will be 40% owned, but it's like, hey, we can play Cantlay, and we can start there. Here, it's like, man, I don't know. I might just play like 6-7K guys and leave $8,000 on the table. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities, and none of them are good this week.
It's incredibly bad. I will say, as I always do at the top of the show, our friends of Fantasydraft, who are sponsoring the show, they have to bear with this bad field. What they're doing, as everybody knows, rake-free fantasy, which is a totally different dynamic. 100% of entry fees go towards that prize pool. So if you haven't signed up, 7-day free trial with the promo code AWESEMO. We've had some big scores over there. And again, not paying that rake really does help out. So they have the subscription model. Go check it out. Normally people probably tune out when I say that. This is the time to listen, because when we get into the golfers, there's not going to be much to say with this. I do want to say he's not in the field, so I can't reference it. Did you look at Kevin Na's strokes gained last week?
I didn't look at it, but I heard it was off the charts putting, right?
14 and a half strokes gained, but he lost strokes with the ball striking. So that's one way to get it done on tour.
The reverse Grillo.
Yeah, the anti-Grillo. Just ridiculous. I mean, I figured Cantlay was going to catch him at the end there. He did not, but when you make 500, and I believe it was 570 feet of putts in 4 days, it's probably going to be good. That's more than Grillo's made probably all season. I can confidently say that. But
yeah. But it's like, what do you take from that? I mean, you can literally take nothing. It's like when Michael Kim won the John Deere. I mean, there's nothing you can take from that. The guy ran insanely hot. He had a 1 in a million putting performance, and like literally anybody who did that would have won.
That's what you take from it, that it's an outlier.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean anything going forward. I'm less likely to play Kevin Na, the next time he tees it up based on that. But
I mean, it just shows the high variance, week to week. You want to look at the results, but you also want to look at the data, because like you just said, Michael Kim, props to him. He's on exemption and he's living the dream. Just about 30 cuts sandwiched between that. So you don't want to just be chasing pure results. That's for sure.
Yeah, Michael Kim will be running a range picker somewhere in California.
Poor Michael Kim. He would be like 8,000 in this field. So let's give him respect compared to who we have. But we are, as we mentioned, so let's get to the basics. Shell Houston Open, we talked about this. It used to be the prep for the Masters. It wasn't on the schedule last year. Now it's in the swing season. What do you say about this course? Because it's one we've seen a lot. It's just in a different time slot.
Yeah. So we usually see it. What is that? Early April.
Mm-hmm.
7,400 yard par 72. We've seen the course a lot. I mean, it's been played here plenty of times. It's a course where I guess the wind is a pretty big factor, being that we're in Texas. The scores have kind of fluctuated when there's no wind. We see the winning score around like 20 under. And then when the wind gets up, it can be down around 12, 13 to 15 under. For being a par 72, not a lot of eagles. The par 5s are generally pretty long, don't yield a lot of eagles. I'll give a slight edge to driving distance. I don't think it's an end-all, be-all. I think anytime we're at a longer par 72, I would, put a little bit of emphasis on driving distance. But we've seen kind of all types of players do well here. We had Poulter and Hostler duking it out in 2018, Henley and Kang, Jim Herman. Kind of everybody can get it done. I give a slight edge to driving distance, but not a ton this week.
I would too. And the par 5s, they're definitely gettable. They're not high eagle rates, as you said, but that's where you need to score the wind determines a lot of it. If the wind is at your back, you're going to be able to really take advantage. And it's a weird course. There's some hazards. There's some water that can get you into trouble. I don't know what exactly to make of the. I don't think we know how different it'll play in October than April. I do think that it is worth noting the week before the Masters, they do their best to entice people to play by emulating what we see at Augusta. Now, clearly, they have no incentive to do that. So maybe the greens are a little slower. Maybe the rough is up a little more. But overall, I still think it's going to be what we primarily saw it, even when it was in April.
Yeah, that's a good point. It could be set up slightly different. I'm not a big course history guy anyway, but maybe a small bump down to how you would value course history, being that might be set up slightly different. But yeah, it's really hard to tell. Some question marks, but I'm not really too concerned with it at all this week.
No, I think that's fair enough. Well, we have to, unless we want to make it a 7-minute show, we're going to have to talk about the golfers. So we've got the Iceman, Henrik Stenson, the only top 40 player in the world who's in this field. He kicks it off. Then we have Cameron Champ, Brian Harman, Daniel Berger, and Russell Henley. Wow. What say you? These guys were in the mid 7s, 8s last week and earlier in the swing season, and now they are all over 10,000 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. We have Stenson at 11-4. He's 9-1 to win. The next closest or the next best odds are guys like Champ, Brian Harman, and Berger, who are 22-1 to win. So from a Vegas standpoint, just like overwhelming win equity from Stenson, although I don't know if I really agree with that. I think that 9-1 is not a great price. But I mean, Vegas just gives Stenson just so much win equity based on him being the best player in the field, has great course history. He's got a 6th, 2 seconds, and a 3rd here since 2009. The thing that worries me a little bit is he just hasn't played very much. He gave up on the playoffs, did not play in the FedEx Cup playoffs. Looks like his last event was the WGC in Memphis, and then we saw him at the Scandinavian Invitational where he was 3rd. Terrible field. And then we saw him at the BMW PGA where he was T17. So not a bad effort in a good field, but just we haven't seen him too much. And I know that's a little concerning to me. And this event, he's got great course history, but this used to be kind of like right in his wheelhouse. We never see him play the California swing, and we see him at, Valspar, Bay Hill. We'd see him here as kind of like a run up to the Masters. And, I don't know. I think he was kind of hitting his stride at this event along with it being a good course fit. There's a lot of question marks for me at 11-4 with him.
So allow me to play psych doctor here.
All right.
I agree with you in the sense that Stenson strikes me as the type of guy who really he has his schedule. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He plans to rev up for majors. And we see that he rarely plays in the swing season. He's not too concerned if he starts a little slow and then he gets it going, gets in a groove, and he hopefully peaks around Augusta, around the US Open, and so on and so forth. For being the top end guy, it's a lot of risk relative. Now, when we talk about the rest of these guys, of course, that's going to be too. But I don't agree at all with his win equity in terms of what we see in the Vegas market. I just don't see it. There's questions in where he's even at this point. Lost strokes off the tee last year for the first time in basically forever. Now, his irons were fantastic. There's no denying that. But as you've talked about, when you're bad off the tee, you have more room to really have crisp irons in a lot of ways. So, I mean, if I make enough teams, of course, you have to consider who is the best guy in the field. But overall, I don't like the spot for the guy leading off the pricing this week at all.
Me neither, but I don't like the spot for anybody.
Very true. That's true.
So just to move off of that, I mean, I think we're on the same page. He feels overpriced. It feels like there's a lot of risk. I don't feel comfortable playing Stenson. But the problem is, Champ at 10-8, who he missed the cut last week. It's an outrageous price for him. I mean, I know he won at 2 weeks ago, but man, he just hasn't been good enough for me to justify that price tag. Harman's been very good for him, but 10-6, that seems like an egregious price tag. Berger getting better, but he's got a good course history, and I feel like that's inflating his price tag. I mean, it's bad. Let's talk about Henley at 10-1.
No. Talk about course history and
I know. This is like, to me, this is a mirror image of Cantlay from last week, although Cantlay is obviously a better, more consistent golfer. Henley has this amazing course history. He started off the season not very good, but last week he was T37, but he struck it really good, 6.7 with the ball striking. So like kind of a very underrated T37. I mean, I don't love the price for him. I feel like, as always, price ownership inflated by this crazy course history where he hasn't finished worse than T8 in the last 5 years. But he was sneaky good last week. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd prefer him over Champ, Harmon, or Berger. I can say that.
I have Berger ahead of him, which, again, we're not going to feel comfortable with that.
Terrifying.
He has not Henley level course history, but he also has a lot of success here. When you look, a pair of top fives in recent years, 4 straight top 25s, no wins or anything like Henley, but again, good player. We've seen him win twice. Josh Cole pointed this out. He does amazing work about TPC South winning this, having some similarities, whether it's Bermuda, some hazards. And that's something that I noticed when I was kind of breaking it down. So I do think this is a good course for him, and we've seen that. He's been it's been weird. He's been playing pretty well in terms of results. His irons aren't good right now. Everything else is. So him and Henley are kind of the opposite. Henley's irons are the only thing good right now. Berger's, that's all he's missing. Both of them have great course history. You're paying that tax. But I actually feel pretty comfortable with those. I mean, I certainly would put them and Harmon over Champ. That's a given for me. I like Champ at all.
We're just we're putting a big X through Cameron Champ this week.
Not this week, yeah. I don't like the spot for him. I think you're going to need to do more than just bomb it. But I mean, we'll have to see how ownership gets tomorrow. I will say, how apt are you to just say, forget it? Let me just play Scotty Schaeffler.
I'm very apt to do that, but I also think that's what everyone else is going to do.
Yeah.
He seems the most reasonably priced. He wasn't good last week, but I think people are just getting sharper. They're learning to just kind of maybe disregard one bad week. We saw how good he's been, 7th and 16th in his 2 previous starts on the PGA Tour, 7th, 11th, 1st, in that run-up in the Korn Ferry Tour Finals, has all the amateur pedigree from Texas. I really like Scheffler. He's the first guy, for starting at the top, going down, the first guy that I feel comfortable playing where I don't feel like he's overpriced. Obviously he was T74 last week, not good. The ball striking wasn't good, but that's kind of like the first week where he hasn't been good. So I like him. I think he'll probably be one of the most popular players, and definitely the most popular starting point.
Yeah. One thing is, we didn't see his price, and I know it's not a linear scale, but I feel like his price hasn't moved rapidly. It's not like he's 11.5 here. He's been in that upper mid-range for weeks now against stronger fields. The guy right next to him, Pat Perez, just for reference, I think he was 6,300 last week. What?
Yeah, there is some serious, head-scratchingly bad pricing this week.
All right, so we've got Scotty Schaeffler, but unfortunately, on most sites, pretty much all the ones I play on, you can't just roster one golfer. So we're going to have to do better than that. Working down, I'm just going to rattle off some names, and this is that next range. I mentioned Pat Perez. We've got Denny McCarthy, Sebastian Munoz, Kyle Stanley, Russell Knox, Matt Jones, Keegan. I'll say, I mean, we joke about this guy every week, and I know you don't like him because you're a ball striker guy, as you should be. Denny McCarthy, again, he gained 9 strokes putting last week en route to another top 10 finish.
Putting God, Denny McCarthy. He's gaining over, I think it's 2.1 strokes putting. I mean, through 3 events. So 3 events where he's made the cut through 12 rounds. The guy, I mean, he's an insane putter. This is unsustainable putting.
Yes, for anybody.
Even if he ends the year as the best putter on tour, you're talking about maybe 1 stroke gain putting per round, and he's at 2. I made some lineups that I felt comfortable with that left me with one slot, and I was left in this range, and I did not like it at all. I don't think I can get to McCarthy. Munoz, I was really tilting last week, was that round on Thursday where I think he was 4 under through 17 and then made a quad on 18 on Thursday. That just sunk him. Not in love there. Kyle Stanley, another week of good ball striking, but it's like he just can't do anything. I mean, he was T48. You've liked Stanley. I think we've kind of been monitoring him since the last half of last year, but boy, for 9,300, I just don't think he can get there. I know the ball striking's been good, but it just seems like a big reach at 9,300. What do you think?
Can't putt. I mean, I know we know that, but it just can't be overstated. And I guess I want to, on a week like this, I think it's more appropriate. I mean, we talk about whatever we want. That's what this show's about. But I think it's more appropriate to kind of talk about some overarching macro themes. And I've been thinking about this a lot. It seems like these tournaments, especially this time of the year, you need to go so low. Are you apt to maybe more move in? I know it's a high variance stat to move into these guys that can gain 8-10 strokes putting, because it seems like even if you ball strike as good as it, you're going to have to find positive strokes on the green anymore. You just can't rely on someone just being zero at putting. It's just not good enough to go 20 under.
I don't know. I feel like there's like two types of players. There's bad putters that can putt okay enough to make the cut, and then there's just awful putters like Grillo and Stanley who are just so bad you're dead in the water.
There are high variance bad putters. I want to be clear.
No, I'm not getting off of my ball striking hill because we've seen bad putters gain. It's within the range of outcomes. I know it sounds very unlikely, but Kyle Stanley could go out and gain 5 strokes putting. I mean, we've seen it. We saw Grillo. We've seen Grillo do it. We've seen other guys do it. We saw Keegan Bradley do it at the end of last year. I mean, there's just so much variance from week to week. Yeah, I generally don't target putters, and even in low scoring events, and I've seen it before where we've said, well, boy, we expect 20 under to be the winning score, and I don't think it's going to get there this week. But we see Birdie Fest, and we say, well, you got to target punters. And then we've seen guys like Benny On contend. And it's
Wyndham. Yep.
Yeah, it's so all over the place that, I'm just keep going for the ball striking because I think that's way more predictable than the putting.
I just feel left out of the party. I watch my guys on Shot Tracker, and they're all losing strokes putting. And then I think, man, it must be nice to just have Denny McCarthy, and you're just watching. He's got a 16-footer for the streak, and you're just counting your points already. Like, when Grillo has a 16-footer, I'm nervous that he's going to bogey. I'm not worried about the birdie anymore. Like, it's just with a lack of strength in a field like this, I'm going to look to some different types of lineups. And they're stat nightmares because Denny McCarthy, his ball striking is not even close to a guy worthy of a price tag of where he is, even in this type of field.
And you know what's going to happen the first time we play Denny McCarthy, right?
Yeah, he's going to putt like Grillo. That's right.
I'll give you this for McCarthy. So last week he was about break even with the ball striking. The event prior to that, he gained 2.6. So now if you get 2.6 out of him, you're like,
golden.
You're crushing it. But the first event of the year at Greenbrier, he lost 4 strokes with the ball striking. So that's what you got to look out for. I mean, if he can be around even, which he was last week, and he was actually in the positive 2 starts ago, you're golden. But yeah, you got to watch out. So it's not like the ball striking's been horrible. I guess that's my point. Through 3 events, it's not like it's been ridiculously bad. He's just been bailing himself out with the putter. It's been okay, and the putter has just been a complete flamethrower.
I mean, even at Greenbrier, you just discussed how bad he struck it. He came in 31st, because he gained 8.8 strokes putting. I mean, like you said, unsustainable. But I did want to point that out because, there is the other end of that pendulum. I'm with you more than not. But man, we got to look.
He's expensive too. It's not like you're taking on a lot of risk there. There's a lot of moving parts at 9,500 for me.
So for this range, we know Schaeffler is one. If you had to play another guy in the 9K range and kind of in that second range on Fantasy Draft, it would be Stanley for you?
It would be, but I mean, like, I hate it. Really, I do. But it would be Stanley just because it's so bad. I tend to be preferent. The guys that I've been tracking, it's almost like, man, if he did break out this week and I didn't have him, and that's a horrible way to play DFS, but it's like the tiebreaker. Or Munoz, who wasn't terrible last week, really should have made the cut and has been playing well. So probably one of those two guys. Definitely wouldn't be Denny McCarthy or Pat Perez, though.
Not Perez for me either. I looked at Russell Knox, but he's another one. He got hot on Saturday, but when you look at the stats now, first of all, he played awful on the weekend in terms of Sunday, and it was mostly with the putter. And that's not something I usually like to bank on. Matt Jones is he's another one, but doing it mostly with the short game. He does have a win at this course. I'm kind of indifferent, but this is a pretty dead range. I know we're towards the top, and I guess I shouldn't be saying that because it's only going to get worse in terms of breaking it down. I don't have a lot, though. Keegan is playing awful. Do you have any interest in him?
No interest in Keegan at all. Russell Knox, we're in such a prolonged stretch of him just really doing nothing. He always had a specific course where he would play well. Shorter courses, he'd hit the fairway. The irons were always really good, and the putting was always bad. But it was kind of like you knew what to expect, and you knew where he would play well. Harbor Town, places like that, TPC Sawgrass, Travelers, Honda. But boy, he just hasn't done anything for a very long time. I don't love this course for him, and he's just been pretty mediocre for quite some time now.
It's true. I had him last week on my best team, and just he shot like 12 under, but in that field, what good is that?
He made like one bogey and 3 pars. You drop like 40
you're
spots.
Done. You needed 65 was like keeping up. And I don't think we're going to see it to that extent this week, especially if it's windy, which is nice. I like. There's nothing more than I hate when a guy goes out early and shoots 65, and you're like, all right, that's what I needed. And then by the time the day is over, he moved up like 3 tee times. It's like, great.
I know. Someone sent me a screenshot, and it was like, it looked great because the guys that they had like went out early and all shot 63. And I'm like, those guys are going to be like T40 by the end of the day. Like,
it doesn't even mean anything. So working down, I got a name right off the top that kicks off the 8K range is Harris English. We've got Sam Ryder. I actually like this range. Cameron Tringali, Bud Cauley, Luke List back from the abyss. Pat Mayo gave him the bump last week. Bronson Burgoon, Bo Hostler. I find actually we talk about all the time interchangeable price ranges. I could live with this range versus the range we just talked about.
Yeah, there's definitely some plays here. I mean, I love Harris English. I think a lot of people are going to love him. He's been playing really, really good. 33rd at Safeway, and then 6th at Sanderson Farms, 3rd at the Greenbrier. The ball striking has been really good all 3 events, 4.7, 9.3, and 5.2. Those were his ball striking numbers through the 3 starts. When we talked a little bit about him in the last couple events, this was a guy who's won, I think, 3 times on tour. Hasn't been for a while, but, he's been there and just kind of fell off for quite some time, but he looks like he's back. Playing great golf so far. I think 8,900 is a really good price. Good finishes, great ball striking. I mean, one of my favorite plays this week.
Are you on Sam? I feel like Sam Ryder is going to be really popular. Coming off last week, the irons were great. I think people like to play him. Probably the most expensive he's ever been, though.
No, I don't think I'm getting there. Were the irons were that good last week? I must have missed that.
Yeah, Sam Ryder.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, good, right? 5.3 total. 18th. He's always notoriously a pretty solid putter.
He's got the Kelly Craft. He finished 18th, and then he had a T5 here last year. So
he's a nominee for the Kelly Craft.
We got to jam him in.
He definitely is. I like Cameron Tringali. He follows a lot of the characteristics of Harris English in the sense that he hit some rough times, but this guy's been around. He can play. And he's starting to really find it lately. He's had a good amount of success. Made, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 9 out of his last 10 cuts. I know that's dating back to the end of last season, but even in swing season, made the weekend all 3 times. 16th at Sanderson Farms was his best. Pretty consistently just getting it done. So,
yeah, I read an article on the PGA Tour website about his off the tee game, and how he's gained a lot of club head speed off the tee, and it's really helped him. He's not a great driver of the ball now, but he went from being like one of the worst drivers of the ball on tour to being kind of serviceable, and I think that's really helped his results. You've seen it. The irons have been really good, and if you can go from being a terrible off the tee player to just break even off the tee player, it makes a really big difference. And yeah,
Absolutely.
really good course history. He's a guy we've been playing a lot of since about the middle of last year, so I don't mind him. List, he did it. Did you look at his numbers? He did it all. He gained, I think, 7.5 on and around the green. So he was like Seve last week. So I don't want any part of that. I think people are going to see, first of all, people love to play Luke List. They're going to see the T13. They're going to see the course history, which is 24th, 3rd, and 27th. They're going to want to play him, but I want no part of that. He was not good last week. He just bailed himself out with the short game, which is really not what you're looking for out of Luke List.
It's incredibly not repeatable. Especially there's a difference. I want to just clarify this, and I think you would agree. To me, there's a stark difference. You look at Denny McCarthy and you say, my God, no one can gain 9 strokes putting, and that's true. But he is a great putter. Luke List is not some all of a sudden, he's an above average scrambler. I'll give him that, but he's made strides. He is not some short game god where this is that's how he gets it done. That's just a straight outlier. I think everybody knows that.
Yes. And he did it at a course where you should not need to scramble ever.
No, that's also very accurate. And he is not a good putter, and he gained last week, so I don't have any interest there. Bud Cauley did lose 5 strokes putting last week. It's a guy I don't have a strong take of. His stats are never going to blow you away. He is a world-class scrambler, which maybe it's a little more important at a course like this, but still nothing really. I prefer English. I prefer Tringale. I've seen Carlos Ortiz's name here and there already this week. It's a guy, he's 3 for 3 in swings, or 3 for 4. He's played every week in swing season. He had a 4th at Sanderson Farms, gaining tee to green pretty consistently. Did he catch your eye at all?
Yeah, he did. Just like what you said, the ball striking has been really good through 4 events. Yeah, I don't mind him. I think there's other guys, in the mid to upper 7 range I'd probably prefer, or, just going up. I know it's a little bit of a price difference, but guys like English and Tringale I prefer. But I don't mind Ortiz if you get there. He's a guy that we've just really been waiting for him to do something. It seems like it was so long ago where he won those 3 events on the web.com tour in one season, and then just got to the big tour and just couldn't do anything. But yeah, it's coming around for him. Talented guy, but I think there's some cheaper guys I prefer over him.
So working down, one of the few positive things, Xingjun Zhang, the Chinese bad boy, is really playing well. That was one of the guys that we kind of discussed. And what can you say? Gaining really tee to green, just tearing it up. Did not do a thing with the putter and still came in 16th last week. Are you going to continue to ride this guy who may or may not be the Chinese bad boy?
Yes. Well, like we said, I definitely want guys that are going to try and cheat. So that's a good thing. He's working for you out there. But yeah, the ball striking has been crazy. 6.8, 4.0, and 2.6 in his last 3 starts. Really solid stuff. 16th, 7th, and 60th. It's tough. I don't think people are going to go there. I don't just the name recognition is not there. The price is So I don't know. The numbers are good. I like him. Trying to figure out whether I like him or Lanto Griffin at AK. I know, this is wow, did you ever think you would say this? It's really...
I'm about to say a sentence that, first of all, it's probably I always think when I say bizarre things, has anyone ever said this? Ever? I think that Xingjun Zhang will be not that popular because Lanto Griffin is going to be so popular.
Lanto is just soaking up all the ownership at AK.
4 straight top 20s on the swing season. The guy has just come out on a tear. He's another one. Now, he did not do it with the putter last week. That was the first time, though. He had gained 16 strokes over the last 3 events before that. Even though, in his defense, tee to green, he'd been pretty good, too. So he's just playing great golf all around.
Yeah, he's playing good. The last 2 3 of the 4 events this year, he's gained strokes with the ball striking. And the one he lost, less than a stroke. So, he's been right around even or a little bit positive. So yeah, it's not like it's been all with the putter. He's just been he's been putting great, and doing a little bit of ball striking, like you said. 4 good starts. I think with the last event of the Corn Ferry Tour season, he was 7th. So I mean, we're going back 5 starts. They've all been top 20s. He's been really good. So yeah, I mean, I like him at 8K. I don't know. Oof,
he's going to be popular. He's definitely going to be popular. And I'm not saying don't play him just because of that, but you want to be aware those numbers are going to jump off the screen to people. The guy has just been, I mean, he's been getting it done week after week. So we'll see. I mean, it's funny because you have guys like that who are people I barely knew existed. We don't have a book on them. And then you have Kevin Chappell, who's right below them, who's the complete opposite. Now, he's better than all these guys, but he's coming off a long, long layoff. He threw in a 59. It's really hard to gauge where his game is at. Are you going to go to him at all, or are you going to take these more unknown commodities, honestly, but who are playing a little better?
Yeah, the irons haven't been good for Chappell. I mean, it's only been 8 rounds, and we know he's working his way back from injury, but there's not much in the stats that say to play him. I don't think I'll get there. I mean, I think if you're max entering, you're going to want some exposure to him. But I mean, if you're just playing a few lineups, I don't think I'll get there. I mean, we know what he's capable of. Obviously, way better player than these guys. But it's just tough when we saw the 59. That was obviously an insane putting performance in that one round, and outside of that, it just hasn't been that good. So when I'm looking at the numbers, I don't see a lot that's saying to play him. So yeah, I'm probably going to pass on Chappell, even though that hurts. I'll throw Robbie Shelton in with Zhang and Lanto as maybe a guy I like a little bit more. Seems to have more of amateur pedigree. He's made all 4 cuts. The ball striking has been really solid. In 3 of the 4, he gained 5.2 last week. And I like him. We're back on Bermuda. I think that's something that I guess we didn't mention at the top. Back on Bermuda, we've kind of bounced around on bent grass, on post, and now we're back on Bermuda. I think some of these guys from SEC country might do a little better on the green. So I might like Shelton better than Lanto or Zhang.
So it's funny. I'm similar but different in the sense that if we get word, and as you know, at awesemo.com, we have really great ownership projections. I'm interested to take a look at them. If it looks like ownership is massing around Lanto and Xingzun Zhang, I'm going to take a one-off with Chappell. I'm willing to buy, and you're right. If you're looking at the stats, it's not going to lead you to him. I don't think you play him for the stats. I think you play him because you're saying if this guy is turning it around and is shaking off rust, the upside is there for someone that I think we both know. In a year from now, if this is the same tournament, Chappell's what, 10K?
Yeah, easily.
Okay. So I might look as a one-off. Robbie Shelton's another really good guy to mention. In a way, it's funny. I trust him more than those other two in the sense I heard of Robbie Shelton coming out. He did have some pedigree, and it's a guy that's shown some flashes, even though there's no arguing with the recent form of some of these newcomers.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that, I mean, Shelton could end up being
really good.
All these guys could end up being a very good golfer, but Shelton is like a highly touted amateur and a guy who I don't think anybody would be surprised who was up there with guys like Scotty Schaeffler. We have kind of a bigger sample of a guy like Lanto Griffin, and even he's playing great, but it just doesn't seem like he's the next big thing. And that scares me a little bit when you see guys get on a good run and their price starts to get elevated, and you kind of in the back of your head, you really think, boy, what do we really expect out of Lanto Griffin in the long run? I mean, he's just not a guy who we're going to see it as a 10K golfer one day, but we very well could see Robbie Shelton as a 10K golfer.
Burying land. I'll say this about Lanto, and he hasn't been on tour, a ton. It's not like he's some veteran, but he has 5 career top 20s. He's got 4 straight right now. So it's maybe he's turned the corner, or maybe this is just a stretch of all stretches. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm with you. I tend to side on guys that I view somewhat, even though it's 1 week, I still do think overall, I kind of like guys that I think maybe are a little underpriced relative to where we'll see them in the future. So I'm with you there.
It's hard to play a chalk guy who you really don't think. I mean, it's one thing if you play a chalk guy and you're like, this guy's in a smash spot and he could win this tournament or do some serious damage. It's another if it's like, man, I don't really believe in this guy. He's going to be chalk. Top T14 seems to be like his best outcome. I mean, that's really not something you're looking for. And I feel like that's what we're getting in Lanto Griffin. You're getting a chalky golfer who's really not that good, and we're not sure exactly how much upside he really has.
And in, a public service announcement, I in my articles, I have this at the top, and they're going to remain there. With the new cut rule, chalk is that much more deadly because just everybody's made cut equity is lower across the board. So you can, I mean, I was guilty of it. Aaron Wise last week butchered a ton of good lineups because it's just very tough to make cuts out here. And even though this field sucks, these guys aren't, automatic. So looking down, now we're in the mid-range. Guys like your boy, Richie Warinsky, who is putting the lights out. Johnny Vegas is a Texas guy. We've got the Europeans in Bjerregaard, Tom Lewis. What do you make of this, kind of mid 7K range and on fantasy draft, kind of that middle tier 13,000-ish?
It's hideous.
It's
really
bad,
yeah. I don't like much. Landry is a guy who the ball strike has been good. Just another guy that can't make a putt. I have no Kramer Hickok, just abysmal with the putter last week. The approach game was good. Texas guy, but he's not been good. Doc, I'm going to keep going back to Doc Redman at 7,200. I mean, he's another guy. The results haven't been great, but just week in, week out, he's making cuts, gaining a significant amount of strokes with the ball striking. He's the fourth best ball striker in the field. He was really good last week, gained 7.1. He gained 2 strokes in the miscut at Safeway, gained 4 strokes, 6 strokes the 2 weeks prior to that. So, I mean, very, very consistent ball striking. The price hasn't really jumped because we haven't seen a really good performance out of him yet. But we saw some of that at the end of last year. So, I mean, he's probably one of my favorite plays just based on the ball striking, based on the price, and a guy that I think has a little bit of upside for the price.
Even when you look at Vegas, he kind of stood out in terms of his outright odds where he was priced, maybe a little lower than it should be. So I have no problem with that. But, as I always say, I have a DFS article that's available on the site. Go check that out. I also have a betting preview where I highlighted some things, and I'll give you a little sneak peek. As a real dark horse in this field, you know who I like? It's Brendan Steele.
Really?
From the Abyss, who has been nowhere, but he's starting to get it together. Now, he always gains off the tee. That's pretty much automatic. Last week, it's not going to stand out and hit you over the head, but he did gain with the irons, was solid around the green, didn't do much putting, came in 29th. He's made all 3 cuts during swing season. And this is a guy, we talked about Harris English. Brendan Steele has done some major work, and he's done some major work during swing season. Now he's got 2 wins at Safeway. That'll do it. But I think he likes this time of year. A lot of that is in California, truth be told. But I'm willing to bank on him kind of maybe going under the radar at that mid 7K price range this week.
I mean, it's really slim in this range.
That's also what I'm getting at. Chat mentioned Austin Cook. He's been playing pretty shitty, not going to lie, but 1% type guy. He's not going to be popular in my opinion. So I don't think that's the worst idea. You're not going to find much even here, and we haven't even got to the real dismal situation.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, you're going to have to really do some digging to find some reasons to play these guys. I mean, I thought you were going to try and tout Marc Hubbard again this week.
No, I should have. I did tout him last week, and then like a donkey, I didn't use him in anything important. What about, he's another one of your guys. Do you like him to continue the run here?
I mean, the iron play has been good. I don't love him. I think there's, like we said, I think Doc Redman's far superior play to him. But yeah, I mean, the iron play has been good. Off the tee, not great. He's just not a guy that strikes me as having a ton of upside. I don't think we've ever really seen him contend on the big tour. But yeah, I mean, approach game is solid. I mean, it's really like another one, kind of like Brendan Steele. It's really hard that you have to try and cobble together a reason to play some of these guys and dig pretty deep. So with him, it would be all about the approach game, but I don't love him. I prefer Redman.
And that's really what it's about. You have a ton of guys in this field that are relative unknowns in the sense we haven't seen them for a ton. Their first year on tour, or they've bounced around, versus guys like Brendan Steele, who we've seen a ton of them, but we have to ask ourselves, where are they in their game? Brendan Steele had an awful 2019, 2018, 2019 season. Is he going to return to the form where in a field like this, if he was in form, he would be a lot higher priced? Maybe he's not that same golfer. Maybe he is. We just don't know. And that's what we're trying to decipher. Did you happen to see Matt Every's stats from last week?
I did, yeah. They were good. Boy, he really scares me though.
Oh, he's the worst. That guy.
He had some flashes last year. The game came back a little bit at the beginning of last year. But yeah, I still don't know. It's hard to really chase one event of good approach game. But he's on Bermuda, so I don't know. He can be dangerous. I don't think I'm going there this week, though.
Matt Every last year, I remember this well, and I have it in front of me in addition. He had a couple of top 20s leading up to API where he had won multiple times, and he missed the cut by like 30 strokes. He was so bad, and that's what you get with him. He missed 3 cuts in a row after that. Then he came in second at Byron Nelson. It comes out of nowhere. Even at the swing season, he was bad at Greenbrier and Safeway. Then he gained 9 strokes with the irons, which is what we were talking about at Shriners. So I don't know what to make of it.
He's just one of those guys where it's like Siwoo Kim. It doesn't – a great performance this week doesn't mean that he's building towards something. It's just randomly great and then terrible, great, terrible. He's not building towards anything. One good week doesn't mean anything for the next week.
Absolutely. That's the Siwoo, as you've said. All right. We're working down to the real bare bones, but I do want to say real quick, a couple things. Chat, as we always, thank you for stopping in on this beautiful Tuesday. If you can hit the like button, flatter us, subscribe, do all the good stuff that keeps the show going. We really do appreciate it. If you are not a member and you want to sign up for Awesemo Plus, we encourage you to do that. We have express packages. We have monthly, yearly, we have all sorts of things. And depending on what you get, you have access to all our premium tools, articles, projections, obviously the shows, and Slack chat, which is really the best. You can hear Tim complaining about Griot or Aaron Wise running amok in the golf channel. And then you can hop over to college football, where on Saturdays we do that with different players. So we got a lot going on. NBA, as everybody knows, is about to begin, and we have some of the best minds out there. So hop on in. We'd love to have you part of the community. My God.
I'm going to give one college football. Normally we like to keep this stuff behind the paywall, but you just want to play Pga Hubbard every single week. So yeah. I don't want to give away any of your secrets, but just play Pga every week.
Especially in 2019. I've mentioned many times, I've had a rough 2019 go of it. But if there was one thing that I've gotten right, it was Pga. I was the first person to Pga Hubbard, and this man will attest to that. It really was. What a boss. Love that guy. And they give him the ball 40 times a game. So
doesn't matter. Even if they're losing by 21, he's still
Texas
getting
Tech, they were never in the game, and he had like 4 touchdowns because that's what he does. I wish if he was in this slate, honestly, I consider roasting him, just knowing what we're dealing with here. Boy, so we're at, the bare bottom. We've got the 7K and below on DraftKings, those cheapies on Fantasydraft. You mentioned before the show, I don't know who it is. You were like, I looked low and I only basically had one name in the 6s. What say you about this range in general?
I'm embarrassed to say the name that I have.
You don't even want to know where I'm going. I have some insane people down here.
So we'll work our way down. I mean, Doug Gim, I just feel like the amount of talent, the upside that I think he's going to have eventually, he just seems underpriced to me. I mean, again, he's $3K cheaper than Scotty Schaeffler, and I don't think the talent level is that different. I know Scheffler started off a lot better than Gim has, but Gim is a talented guy at 6,800 a Longhorn. So I don't mind him for a shot in the dark. Okay. Zack Suture. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Suture.
He's the guy. Was that Travelers? Hold on. Yeah, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, go on.
At 6,600. He doesn't play often, but when he plays, he's been pretty damn good. T18 at Sanderson Farms, where he gained 2.7 with the ball striking. T24 at Greenbrier, where he gained 6.3 with the ball striking. Again, kind of limited starts, but we saw that out of him last year. Didn't play a lot, but when he played fairly well. And I think for this price, I mean, through 2 starts, the results have been good. The ball striking has been really good. And I just think the fact that we don't see him very often, not a household name, I think maybe that's keeping the price down. But I like him a lot. I mean, for the price, I mean, this is a bad field. And from what we've seen out of him so far this year, it's been good.
So I think the important thing to point out is kind of what you just mentioned. You have to ask yourself, if he, in this field, if he was 73 or 7,400, would it really stand out in a bad way? I don't think that. Looking at his results, how different is he than Zing Zun Zhang and Lanto? I know Lanto's maybe a little more consistent, but this is a guy we don't know much about. So far in the swing season, he's been dynamic. He has unlike those guys, he has an actual near win at Travelers last year. Now, he came out of, when I say nowhere, I mean nowhere. But I don't think you're going to find many other players in the mid sixes that you can really look to that have any sort of form like that. Now, another guy who returned, he's not Kevin Chappell, never was. James Hahn is coming back. He did play, but I'm not there. I know the irons were good last week, and he snuck through the cut on a miracle back 9. It was bizarre after he blew up, but I don't think I'm going to go there. I'm going to go up just a little higher, and I'm going to make a case for a true dark horse in Cam Davis, the Aussie who always burns me. He hasn't really been playing well, so that's strike 1.
All right.
So let's get that out. But I will say he was 10th in driving distance last year on tour. He tears apart par 5s. So he certainly got the length. His irons have been a little better lately, especially at Sanderson Farms where he was 28th. And he did start to get some consistently towards last year. Now, this is a guy you're not going to find a ton of success when we look at his year last year. It was not good. But he was, a little better in swing season early last year. He's starting to show maybe some of that. And I do think that his length can be an asset. So you look at him, I wanted to go to Grayson, but Grayson has been so incredibly bad.
Yeah, it's like once we rolled over to the new PGA Tour season, he had played great on the Korn Ferry Tour, and then just like it all fell apart. So yeah, not good for Grayson.
Okay. No, that can't be serious. I love our chat. Someone just suggested, who is Tommy Gainey?
Tommy Two Gloves Gainey? Are you kidding?
He's the flat min.
No, he was the guy that was on the big break back in like 2007. And then, he's terrible.
Yeah, I'm not there. He did make the cut last week, but that is a guy. Man, there are some. Rich Beam is in this field.
Why is Rich Beam even playing in this field?
I don't know. We got Michael Perez. Don't know who that is.
Do you have any Cole Hammer takes?
Cole Hammer is he? I believe he's a Texas guy. Is he not?
Yeah, he goes to University of Texas.
So honestly, I'm more apt to let other people try to do that. And I say this every week, and I talk about this. It's a perfect segue. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night, me and Jason Roslin will get into some of these games. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't with these guys. John Oda is someone that I've started to warm up to here and there. I played some last week. It's incredibly difficult to get through the cut when you're not the best. And B, you do have to keep in mind, I know it's great to get 66, and even with the new cut rules, you can't have a guy who shoots, 6 over on the weekend and comes in 74th. That's not going to help you. So just because some of these guys hang in for 36 holes, keep in mind, they can't just completely unravel. And that's what my worry is with someone like Cole Hammer, Ryan Gibson. You ever look at that guy?
Right, Ryan. Yeah, no, he's not good.
I mean, he's made a couple cuts, 57th, 33rd. I'm not sure that's even what I'm looking for. I'd rather take a shot in the dark with a guy who's not making cuts, but I know if I get it right, he could grab a piece of a top 20.
I mean, Cole Hammer, he's got He's got a career in porn if the golf thing does not work out. It doesn't even
It's good to have backup plans.
Yeah, so
at the way I'm picking golfers, I might need a backup plan like that soon enough. So
him and Vince India, those two guys are.
Vince India, is he in this field?
No, he's not.
Yeah, Cam Davis, as Chad pointed out, when he triple bogeyed to move the entire cut line.
Yeah, that's the guy's claim to fame, was triple bogeying 18 out of the last group to move the cut line.
All right, couple more names, and then we can bounce out of here from chat, because I like where these conversations are going. Because, I'm looking at Fantasy National right now and where I get some of my ball striking statistics. Boo Weekly does stand out from that aspect of it. Now, the results are not there. A, because he's a horrendous putter. Do you have any interest in saying, give me one of the better ball strikers down here, or you're just going to avoid the range?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys where the putter, he's one of the all-time worst putters, and we've seen him. I mean, in the early 2000s, he won some events, but yeah, just an all-time bad putter. And I don't think this is the best course for him. He's more of I don't know if I remember right. He seemed to be more of a short track specialist.
I don't know if he has a special. Yeah, I mean, my whole thing is, do you really need in a field like this to go this low?
No, because it's not like there's no studs at the top you're going to want to jam in anyway.
I've never spent down to pay up for Harmon, Henley, and Berger combos.
Yeah, paying down here, you're taking on a lot of risk just to play guys at the top who have a lot of risk as well. So I'm trying to avoid the top, honestly. So.
I think a lot of people are going to go balanced, but in this situation, to me, it is the prudent move. There's just no reason to. The reward of getting unless you think a guy can grab placement points, but if your goal is, I'm going to take this guy at 6,500 and I'm hoping he just makes the cut, I don't see the merit to that, because there's, to me, little correlation between being able to spend up for that extra guy up top. I just don't see it. So I'm not there in that regard with this. I mean, these guys are really low. Graham Dillette, people are bringing up. I think we saw last week. Work in progress.
He was bad last week.
Really bad. So I'm going to wait and see. You lose nothing by not playing them.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. This is not a week where you need to force in guys at the bottom, because there just really isn't that talent at the top to pay for.
That's right. What's your benefit?
Nothing. I mean, I would like to see, what do you think Cameron Champ's, made cut probability is?
Well, we have tools like that behind the paywall, and I can't wait to see it, because it just shows, and that's a great thing to talk about. You're going to see that you're really not paying up. And when it's across the board, it's just something we have to deal with. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to go to these guys in the mid-range because they're super safe. Obviously not, but Cam Champ, are you kidding me? I don't, unless he takes the course apart with his driver, maybe he will again. I just, no. That's a no for me, dog. We got a couple minutes left. So any final, did you bet anyone?
No, not yet. This has been, I'm trying to invest very lightly into this tournament.
I got one last comment, and I'm going to leave it at that. I bet Sean Stefani at 150 to 1. I don't know if I need to explain why I did that. Just because I'm burning money. He's a Texas guy. So I'm at Sanderson Farms. He actually lost strokes with the approach, which is an anomaly. That's his best, aspect of his game. Again, a Texas connection, really low. Now he's played this tournament a ton. He does have a top 5 in a number of one of the years. Again, grasping at straws, but he's sub 7K. So I do think he's worth a look at 6,800. We see him at 6,800 and Fields a lot stronger than this.
You make a convincing argument, but I don't think I'm not gonna tell you on that one.
Don't. That's good. So then when I win, I get all the street cred when I don't post it to Twitter. But most likely he'll be hitting the showers after Friday. But I think really we did the best we could down here. You mentioned Doug Gim, guys like that. Just don't get crazy with names down here. I think you'd want to tread lightly, even though the appeal is, let me load up on some of these new characters because it's so wide open up top. Be careful with that.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's always good to avoid the chalk. But it's different when you're talking about playing Patrick Cantlay last week at the Shriners as chalk, or playing Lanto Griffin as the chalk. I mean, this is just like a totally different quality of golfer this week that's going to be chalky. Guys that are unproven, guys that have way higher miscut equity, chalky guys that have way higher miscut equity than we're used to seeing. Um, so yeah, it's definitely a really good week to be contrarian.
I think so. I really do, because in a field like this, people are, to me, will weigh recent form that much more, because they're just like, oh, it's awful. Let me go to the guys who are playing great.
And I also think in a week where it is hard to find good plays, you get in this Twitter echo chamber of this. Everyone's kind of keying in on the same guys, and it's really hard to find any reasons to play some of these guys. And you're just seeing the same names kind of mentioned over and over again, and yeah, you're going to end up with really high ownership on some really shady characters.
And that's why people listen to this show, because no one in their right mind thinks like us. If that's one thing we got going for us. So that's a different variation of how to get it done. But we're going to get on out of here. Chad, once again, I do say thanks a bunch for coming to hang out with us, even in a bad week. If there are names that you didn't get to, we didn't get to, you can find us on Twitter, find us in Slack. And I'll be back tomorrow, 9 p.m. EST with Jason Roslin, where we go over lineup construction, answer those Q&A from chat, and talk a little weather if there is any. So, yeah, boy, Houston Open. What can I say? We did it thanks to Fantasy Draft once again. Sign up over there. Good luck, everyone. There's still a lot of money out there, so let's go get some. And we will be back next week, next Tuesday. Take care.